the assignment. So today I've joined twice because I'm trying to manage how I can manage some things on my end. Just shouldn't get worried. Okay. Today we are going to look at pivot tables as we are following our trend. Sorry, I think would have flashed. So today we are going for pivot tables. It is the first day we are looking at this, and we are going to start at a slower speed, not to shock the some of us. It is maybe tomorrow when we shall gear up the speed. So today we are going to look ideally on how you structure pivot tables, some of the nitty-gritties. Then it is no, not tomorrow, I think maybe next week. But I will always call upon we to always embrace anything coming on WhatsApp, because it is somehow we can squeeze on time and some of the questions. So I'll go ahead look for one of the data that Susan shared with us. It's the sample we are going to use today. So I think I'm going to use the Hodim report, one of them. So I will go ahead and use the Kasese. Something above than this, you're good if this. There are some functions you may miss out, but I know all will be good. Now, so we have a report like what you're seeing in front of you. We are being given a task to come up with a high-level summary on some of the things. At the moment, we may not note them out, but going forward, we shall be creating a plan. The moment someone asks you, or you are entitled to have maybe a data analysis, you'll always first plan. Planning is always the first thing. You lay a strategy on how you're going to do that, which functions, some of the things you think about them, you may not document them. Then at the end of the day, you have now to put your hands in that is now data cleaning, because obviously the data you'll be using will not be right for what you need to analyze. Then it is after then you have cleaned your data thoroughly. All the sessions we have been going through, we have been looking at the different functions we can use to clean data. Then it is after then when you start now summarizing out from the bigger data or the bulk data, summarizing out, getting out summaries, summations, averages, some calculated fields. Then you start presenting all this in the visuals. Visuals always comes last. That's why in all the sessions we have done, we haven't even talked about how you present a graph, how you present this and that. So the data we are using is obviously not clean. Number one, why it is not clean, we are having blank rows. That is the first thing I will look at and know that this data is not clean. Number two, why I may say that it is not clean, I'm looking at some of the columns which are merged. When you look at a column from F to I, you'll see that G is merged, H is merged. So when you click in one of the cell, like this cell I've clicked in, you'll find that G, H, and I, they are merged. So wherever you are dealing with data, make sure that you get rid of all the margins. You get rid of all the blank rows and columns. Then some of the reports will be having maybe some funny stuff or summary at the end, like this. You get rid of all this stuff. How we get rid of it, it is the techniques we have learned maybe in a few sessions we have had, or at least the techniques, the basics you have had for with Excel. So I'm going to go through the cleaning of such data. You may not get data that is like this, but at least pick the basics and the principles of what we do in data cleaning. So when you meet data that is having margins and blank columns, blank rows, the only thing you'll first do is this. You'll select the whole sheet, always. In the advanced bit where we shall reach maybe like in session number 7 there, where we shall start using Power Query, which is always here, it will be easy for us and you love it. But at the moment, we are still using the basics. So you'll select the whole sheet. Just do a Control-C, that is copying, or you come here, home, and copy. Then after copying this, go on another sheet, or you can even open another workbook. So this time I will open another sheet. Now in this sheet, what I'm going to do, I'm going to paste values. Why do we paste values? Yesterday you saw me pasting values many times. I was cleaning like, ideal I was cleaning the data, removing the formula in the background. So here, for us to paste values, what we are doing, we are removing the formatting that is already with this sheet. Already there is a formatting because rows and columns are being merged, and that's what we don't need. So I'll come here, select the whole sheet, or even if you don't select the whole sheet, actually this is how we select the whole sheet. You click on that triangle you see that intercepts the rows. You know, rows have numbers, columns have letters. That intercepts the rows and columns. So when you click like this, it will select the whole sheet. Without clicking anywhere, come here on paste, look for paste values only. So I will do paste values only, and it will paste values that way you see it. So now, since I've already pasted the values, now you see that there is a difference between this and this. Why? Because here I have eliminated all the formattings. You see the one which was merged with G, H, and I, now it is only G. It is only standing in G, which means H and I, they are no longer my business. But I will show you how you remove those. Then, when you move forward, you'll see there are many blank columns. There are many blank columns, but we are going to get a technique how we remove all this. So, the next thing now is this. I will select the whole sheet. What I know that data that is always given or is always tracked or is always used for decision making, you can never have two transactions that are the same. Mostly the data now we are capturing with the system. If the time is the same with another transaction, at least the SAP number will not be the same. At least the logon number will not be the same. At least the zone, the HODIM number will not be the same. So this means that I can only select the whole of this. Then I go to data. I remove duplicates. Why am I choosing to remove duplicates? This is the reason why I'm choosing to remove duplicates. Because when we are removing duplicates, we look at rows. We don't look at columns. We have never compared this and this as duplicates, but we compare this and this as to check for duplicates. So the moment I say I'm removing duplicates, all the blank columns, all the blank rows will be looked as if they are duplicates. They will all be removed and we shall remain with only one row. So that is the next step I'm taking. I'll select the whole of this, go to data, then you'll find let me move this here. You'll find here there is remove duplicates. So this is remove duplicates. I will click on this. Since I've selected the whole data, you come here on remove duplicates. The moment you click remove duplicates, it will ask you to delete duplicate values. Select one or more columns that contain duplicates. We have done that. We have selected all of them. Then another thing, here they're asking me that, do you have headers? Never tick this if your heading is not row number 1. Just leave it as how it is. The moment you tick this, it means that row number 1 is your heading, of which our row number 1 is also blank. So we leave it as how it is, okay. The moment I do okay, they automatically tell me that they have removed 1,607 duplicates. And we remain with 1,821 unique values. So you go ahead and do okay. But we see there is still one row remaining. I can remove that one as alone, delete, and even the other one, delete. So when I scroll down, I will find that I no longer have any blank row. Now, the next thing, since we are cleaning data, there is this what we don't have, we don't need. So there are two ways how you can always remove trash that you don't need. How do you remove that? You who is doing data analysis, you have to make sure that you note out the columns that stand out for you, the unique identifiers, where you know that I will never have blanks here. Okay. So where you know that I will never have blanks here. Like if all these transactions were for tracks which were weighing at the weighbridge, which means we can never have a blank for this order number. So it is up to you now to create filters, which means if I select the whole of this and I go to filters, then I click on filter like this, I can go ahead and say anything that is a blank is no longer supposed to be in my portfolio. So, or anything, if you're looking at maybe something else, you can look at maybe a plant here. So you know that everything has to be having a plant. If it doesn't have a plant, because now, why am I choosing plant? Because we have few options. You can also choose that. Or you can come and choose here anything that doesn't have quantity. So you say that anything that is blank, I will not need it. So all this that was being packed at the end as a summary, this was not supposed to be part of our analysis. So I'll select here, Control Shift down arrow. We talked about that shortcut last time. That when you press a Control Shift and you press a down arrow, it will take you up to the end. So after it has taken you up to the end, we are supposed to delete the whole of this. After you have done the deleting, then you can remove the filters again. So which means those are the two steps we have done. We have removed the duplicates. Why were we removing duplicates? Because we chose to remove duplicates because of a purpose. Not every data you have to remove duplicates. Because we had blank rows after every row. That's why we chose to do that. If you don't have the blank rows, then in your case, you're not supposed to remove duplicates. You are supposed to do something else to make sure that your data is clean. Now, the next thing is this. We are going to select the blank columns. You can select one by one like this as you delete, but that is again another time taken, which we shall not account for. So how do we do it? We select the whole of this sheet, then you go to find and select. So on find and select, there is always a function called go to special. If you have never used it, then get it from today that there is go to special. The moment I click go to special, it will open this dialog for me. There are a lot of things I need from here. But purposely now I'm looking for blanks. So what am I doing? I want to get a shortcut of selecting all the blanks at once. But if you don't know this, or if you didn't know it before, you can go ahead and select one by one. In just a minute, you'll have deleted all the blanks. But imagine that we are dealing with around 2,000 columns. So here, that's why I have to go for this. So I'll select blanks and say, okay. The moment I say, okay, this Excel is going to select for me all the blank columns. Because remember, we don't need these blank columns. And here we are. It has selected all the blank columns. What is the next thing for me to do is deleting them because I don't need them. So that is the purpose why I selected all the blanks. If you don't have blank columns, don't select blanks, because in case there is any blank cell, you're going to select it and you'll skew the data. So for me here, I was dealing with blanks, so I will say delete. And you delete once, because the moment you delete once, the selection has squeezed to the left, and the moment you click the second time, it means you're deleting your data. So I will delete once, and here we go. Now you will check now our data that is packed. There is no blank columns, there are no blank rows. And we count this as a step well done. So when you compare with what you had before and what you have now, there is a milestone taken. Okay, now I remember we are focusing on pivot tables. We today I want to introduce you on pivot tables. I will not divert into any other thing. So yesterday we looked at many things. The first thing always, when you have data like this, it is always upon you to create it as a table. How do we say creating it as a table? In other words, you go to insert and you say insert a table. When you just click anywhere in your data, because we no longer have blank rows and columns. Click anywhere, come here and say insert a table. The moment you say insert a table, they are going to ask you, where is your data? Where is the data for your table? So this is the data. It has already selected it from 1 to 1,603. And they are telling me that my table has headers. When this is ticked, it means that the first row, those are my headers, and which is okay. And that's what pushes me to click OK. The moment I click OK, this one converts into a table. Why do you always want to convert your data into a table? Just to easily cope up with any changes you do. Any formula you put, it will just drag automatically downwards. Anything you change, it will be syncing. Like your data is already a container, like you have tied it together. So if you feel these colors are not good for you, some people may not love blue, you'll always come here and change. And you can always change actually to the default color, which is white. But what shows that our data now is a table, because there is a table tab here. The moment you see this tab, it means that your data is in a table format. So that's how we create tables. I'm going to undo and repeat it again. So I will undo twice. Why am I saying we are creating a table? This data of ours is not yet intact, like it is not together. In case someone inserted a column here, it means that from A to F and from G going that side, there will be different data. When we are doing pivot tables, you will not pick columns after them. So why do I bring in a scenario? I have to create a table first. I have to put my data in a table. There are two options. You can always press a Ctrl T. Hope you're noting that is a shortcut of creating a table. When I press Ctrl T on my keyboard, it will automatically give me this. Then another option is go to insert, then go to insert table. And by the way, when you reach here, they show you that when you want a table, you can always use Ctrl T. So I will say insert a table. They will ask me whether my headers are this. Yes, I will say yes. And that is it all. So I can always go and change to a format I feel like I love to use. Some people are color blinded, maybe I can say. Some of us don't like using some colors. So you can always take it back to default. So why is this data denoted to be in a table? Because it has a table format, a table tab here. Why this data is not a table? Because it doesn't have a table tab. You see, when I click there, there is no data table tab. So the moment you create your data into a table, it will create a table. So now the next thing Never work for long without saving your data. We have always got people frustrated on that. You work for 5 hours, not saving, power goes off, a laptop, or Excel crashes. Sometimes you have seen Excel saying it is not responding, it spools for long and crashes. And it tells you we cannot recover the changes you have done. So always you save. I will begin by renaming my sheet. I will call it raw data. So after calling my sheet raw data, I will save it. So I'll go and save as. Always it is good to save as. Don't save. When you do save, it means that you're saving with the name of the sheet that you had. Why I need save as for the start, but going forward, you continue saving. But for the start, I may need to give it a different directory, a different folder where I need. This is where I'm going to put it. Table intro. That you can always leave the save as type as a default, but we shall reach a point when we are dealing with macros. I will tell you to save Excel macro enabled, but this time you always leave it as Excel workbook. Put this, and if you always want to customize your workbook, you can always put here your name. Like, even if you opened it after 100 years, if you didn't save as, it will tell you that I can tell that this sheet initially it was created by Sabiti because he put there as an author. But someone else can change it, but you can always tag your sheets in case you need to customize them. So I'll do save, and we shall save now our sheet with an original name and a sheet name that is different from what it had before. So this is it. I can go ahead actually and bold the header such that it stands out from the others. So in case you have columns that you can't see some of the headers, you can go there always, click on that row and go on wrap text. The moment I say wrap text, it is going to wrap all this like this. So we shall find that if we squeeze this, it will always have to put commercial app carrier down. That's what we call wrapping, such that you can read all the headers clearly. So I think now our data is done. I don't know if there is any question in the cleaning we have done, but those are the dynamics of cleaning. The steps on how we clean, they will never be the same. But what will always be the same are the principles. What you'll always want to have a target before you start off anything. Then another advantage why I created a table in my sheet is this. Do you see that when I scroll up, my headers don't disappear. They remain even if I reach 1,000th row. So those are the reasons why you always have to change your table, your data into a table, such that some of the things you shouldn't struggle with them. Like imagine you have scrolled and you don't know whether this is the exit or this is the exit. You'll have to first go back and check on the header, come back and look at this. It is a lot. That's where we waste time from. Now, the next thing is we are going to introduce ourselves to pivot tables. I know the 40 minutes remaining is going to be at least enough to have an introduction to pivot tables. Okay. Is there any question? Any question from the chat? Maybe because I'm not reading anything from the chat.
Teacher, Chris.
Yo.
Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm okay. They've got two special function. I saw you used it to delete columns. I'm wondering, can it be used to delete rows?
Actually, it can be used.
Something.
Yes, it can be used to delete rows. In case you can use it to delete rows, because the moment you say, why I never wanted to use it in the start, because you can always use a simpler way as a duplicate than that. Because remember, when you have both blank rows and blank columns, the moment you use the both special blanks and you delete, there are there may be data you may lose. You may have a transaction which maybe had the order number up to here, and this data maybe is blank. Maybe it is an X-Works, you don't have a carrier, you don't have a ship to, you know better. So the moment you say, go to special before removing one of them, or rows or columns, you'll find out that even these two cells will be selected as blanks. So when you delete, your data will shift to the left. So you'll find plant is under ship to. The material code is under carrier. I don't know whether you have ever faced that challenge. So that's why in the start, I first remove duplicates. Yes. Now, for you not to have that challenge of data moving, first use duplicates to remove rows. Then you go on find and select to remove columns. And you can always manage your data. If you find that you have such type of data, you can always do it in a simple way, not in that advanced way of selecting all the blanks and deleting them at once, because you lose that data. The first thing I said, you always first have to understand the data you're going to deal with before you do anything, because obviously it is the one that is going to give you insight and the steps of how you have to clean it. I've told you we don't have documented steps of cleaning data. You clean data depending on how data it is. You walk into a room which needs mopping and sweeping, you'll do mopping and sweeping. You walk into a room that needs just sweeping, you'll do the sweeping. So the principles remain that there is always sweeping, there is mopping, but the steps depend on the data you're dealing with. I think that I'm very clear enough. So reading charts, I have been using another format for merging, and no, don't use that, because when you use that for small data. But if you have big data like this 1,600 rows, it means that you're doing merging and centering. You may miss out some. It means like before, when G, H, and I were merged and centered, you may find that some of the quantity has remained in H, some of the quantity has gone in I, and remember you are supposed to remove H and I, the way how it was in the start. So from today on onwards, use what we have used, but if you have small data, you can use merge and center. Then you wrap. Then you go to finance, yeah, those are the steps. Then apply any colors to the table for proper visibility. Yes, I will do that. This is from George. So you can always go to your table design, pick any color you feel like is comfortable for you.
Sabit.
Let's go. Yeah, let's go with that. Yo.
Sabit.
Yes.
I'm asking. Good evening, all.
Good evening.
I'm asking before. I'm seeing here the cell. Before you wrap the cell, and that the chart is off. Which is the first thing we first to do among the two, wrapping and the chart?
Before you do what? Before you wrap?
Yes, which is the first thing first to do? Yeah,
then
the wrapping and the chart. Yes, the chart is off. Before you do the chart, before you do the wrapping, can you also do the chart?
Like charts, like visuals, like going and inserting charts?
Yes.
No, that one, inserting charts is not connected to anything with wrapping. Wrapping, you do it to make sure that you have visibility, right? Someone else asking the same question or supplementing. Please go ahead.
No, I was just asking if he meant putting a table, inserting a table.
Oh, yes. Putting a table. Now, but if you wrap and put a table, obviously the table will come with its own formalities. It will again distort what you will have done. It is the same thing I was saying, that you understand the principles. You can't mop a room, then you sweep it, but you can sweep it and mop it. So there are some things we do before, because when you do something else after, it will distort what you have done. I understand. So if I created wraps, then after that, I went ahead and created a table. Obviously, a table would have merged the wrapping I would have done. So that's why I did it in that step. So I think that is clear. So we shall go ahead and start off with the first thing, creating a pivot. So creating a pivot, I may even hide this, by the way, we don't need it. The first thing in analyzing data, you make sure that you clean your table or you clean your workspace. So I can go ahead and hide this. I don't want to delete it, but let me hide it. So always when you work with data that is small, or you work with sheets that you know that these are the useful sheets, it always gives you energy to continue. But the moment you create 100 sheets here, you have to scroll to find a sheet. You lose morale at the end of the day. So always get rid of what you don't need at that moment. And I'm not saying you delete, you can always either hide them, or you can always leave this sheet alone, you save as another sheet, you work from there. Making sure that you still have your data intact somewhere in another workbook. So we shall go ahead and create and insert a pivot. Now, inserting a pivot, when I've already created a table, meaning that my data is in a container, I will go ahead and just go to insert. Then there are two options here. There is create a pivot and recommended pivot tables. Excel, as I told you previously, that these days we have artificial intelligence in some of the systems we are using, that it will always help you to do some of the things. So if you don't know where to start from, you can always start from recommended pivot tables. And even when you go to charts, there is always recommended charts. So don't hesitate always to click there, you can always come back. So I'll click on recommended pivot tables. They will give me a variety of pivot tables depending on the data I'm having. You see the first thing they are giving me, these transporters. Then the second thing, they are giving me a summary by materials. The third thing, they are giving me a summary by circuits. The other thing, they are giving me a summary by dates. Then the other thing here, they are giving me a summary by the users. So you if you already know that I wanted this, it is up to you now. You can click on this and insert. So they always give you a start of, like a starter. So here they are giving you a summary by material names, material descriptions. Then here they are giving us a summary by, I think these are commercial carriers. So you can click on any of those, but for me, I'm going to start with a blank one. So I will come here, click on pivot table. Then, now I'm going to go slow. When this one comes, always, the next thing we always say, okay, because we want the pivot table to go on a new worksheet. But if you already have a sheet as a summary sheet, or you have when we reach ahead, we are going to create always a working sheet in our document. That's where you put all the summary and all the calculations. Then when you start creating your dashboard, you pick from there. So here, the table name is already picked automatically. Don't touch it. Then here they are saying new worksheet, which means the moment I say okay, it will put this on a new worksheet. Then here is existing worksheet. If you have it, you click here, you go and click on the worksheet where you want to put that pivot table. But currently we don't have the worksheet. I will say new. Then add this data to a data model. I will leave this for now. Those who will continue with us to the advanced Excel, Power Query, that's where we are going to find this. So I will leave that for now. So I will click OK because I want it on a new worksheet. It will automatically create for me a framework of a pivot table, and immediately I will come and rename this sheet. Why am I naming this sheet? Such that I don't get lost in the data I'm creating myself. So I will name this. I always want to call it a working sheet, or you can call it validations, or you can call it summary. Whichever name you give it, it is your choice. Now, the moment you click in this framework, you'll always get the pivot table fields here on the side. The moment you click out, they disappear. And the moment you click there, you'll realize that there is an addition of tabs that come in. there is a major tab called Pivot Table Tools, which has pivot table analysis and design. We are going to use that a lot. Actually, for the next 4 sessions, we all have to understand what is always here and how they use it. Now, this is the framework we have. This is the framework of a pivot table. So the next thing, let's say now we start, because here, by the time you reach this position, you have already planned on in your notebook or in your working sheet or where you're writing that I'm going to create a report for transporters and the quantity they ship in a month. Maybe I'm going to create this, I'm going to create this. You already have that data, what you're going to create. Don't start analyzing when you don't know your output. The moment you start analyzing when you don't know your output, you're wasting a lot of time. You're just looking at data, then you think of what comes is what I start with. So always draft a plan. By the way, they say, when you, I think Rachel should have read this, when there is a book you read, Traction, that when you plan for 80% and it will give you leverage to use 20% in working, and you'll have 100% output. So always planning takes a lot of time, but it's because the execution is going to be easy for us. So there is a chat here. Please repeat the network went off as you were speaking. Thanks. The 2 options, I will just quickly, I know it is on recording, you can always find it. Quickly, one is here. You come on pivot table. There are 2 options, new worksheet and existing worksheet. We are not using existing worksheet because we don't have a worksheet available. We are going to use a new, which is always by default. I will click OK and it will create a sheet for me. Now you'll understand that Excel never repeats itself. Because we had created sheet 2, it can never create sheet 2 again. So that's why you see that it has created sheet 3. So we shall rename this as working. We shall rename this as working. Then this is it. So here we shall go ahead. The first thing, I'm going to get the quantities sold per day. Now, when we reach the day, things, and time, you remember what we did yesterday. When we were cleaning, did we look at our date? Is it in the right format? That is the first question we have to ask ourselves. So you see our date. Our date is on the left. So it automatically tells you what you have to do as a senior who was in a session yesterday. So this date of ours need some bit of working on. How are you going to do it? You can either create another column and refurbish it. So there are some columns I don't need in my data. A column like unit, we don't need it. We can use this to correct our date. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to delete everything that is in unit. Then I will come and rename this as date. Because I can't rename it as delivery date, Excel will tell me that I can't have duplicates in the headers. Now, what am I going to do? We need to change this date to a real date that can align on the left. Because when you come here, you see that this is the way how it is breaking down. But ideally, it shouldn't have broken down like this. It should have brought Apple here on top, then break down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So which function are we going to use? 1 minute, think about it. You can put in the chat or you can unmute and tell us. I'm waiting.
Because date value, then select the column.
The date. I will just select the first reference. Yeah. So now, who sees the beauty of why we always have to have tables? Can someone unmute and tell me what has happened? I know those who were on the call, they are not scared why we are getting 4, 5, 0, 2, 6, 2, 7. You know what it means. You know that is something simple we can sort out. But who can tell me what has just happened? What has just happened different than what you always do when you insert a formula and you have to do other things. You have to scroll, you have to pull the mouse.
You don't have to scroll to under the table.
Exactly. So when you have a table, the moment you apply a formula on one cell reference, it will run it down for you. But when you don't want it to run it down, they always leave you a balloon autocorrect options because it has done an autocorrect. You come on this balloon and tell it, my friend, stop automatically creating calculations in this column. You get? The moment I tell it to stop, it will say, okay, I allow. Let me give you only the cell you had put the formula. You get? But by default, it will always give it. So I want it to always do automatic. I will say redo calculation column. It will do it. And I will go up to the end. It has done this. Even if I had 1,000,000 rows, up to 1,000,000 rows as how you see, it will have done all this. So when you have a table, you don't always have to worry what the world is going through. So it is from here, we can now go and have the good format of a date to use. So I'll come here. Yesterday I told you can use Control-1. So I've selected my column. Control-1 gives us the other dialog box. Here we go. Then you go on dates. You can select this. It is all about you. You can even select this again, but you will see the change between the two dates. So if I select this and I do OK, now I think as someone who was with us on the call yesterday, you see a difference. I think I don't need this circuit. So do you see the difference between the two dates? The difference is there. So the person who is running an analysis with this date in R, he's going to be doomed at some point when you start creating charts and graphs and everything. But this person is very well sorted. Why? Because when I click here like on filter, it tells me that it will filter Apple. You see it has filtered the whole of Apple. If I expand here, it shows me Apple has 1 up to 30. You get? Then if there was May, you'll find May here, you'll find July, June here, July, and going forward. If there is another year, you'll find 2024 year, 20, like that. That's what we call a date. And on top of that, when you go on filter, it will always give you this format of sorting. Sort oldest to newest. But when you come here, it tells you sort A up to Z. Who has ever sorted a date A to Z? So those are the things we always have to ask ourselves. There are a few things you see like this is simple, but it always affects you when you create your report. Some of us are going to create dynamic reports. We shall give a template to our team to use, let's say, for the whole year. You have to put all this into context when you're cleaning that data. So immediately, since there is still a formula here, what I have to do, before I go further, I have to first copy this and paste values, right? So if I copy this, so we have to copy this and paste values. Just a moment. So I will copy this. Then after copying that, we have to paste values. But first, wait a minute. Since we did auto calculate, we may not do that. But never mind, you can always leave this in your data. If you don't want to delete it, you can leave it there. Since I did auto calculate, you see in the formula bar, there is no formula. Okay, it comes after. Then the restrictions you'll always have with a table that you can't copy and remove formulas. But I will show you as we go ahead how you can remove these formulas automatically, then you remain with values. But for now, let's leave it. We know that we shall be using this date. Now, when you come to your pivot, now all what we have done. So when we come to our pivot, there is something that is think there's something not updating on my end. Because it's still reading a table. Okay, I'll cancel this and reopen again since I had already saved. Screen weight is still opening. I think I had a network glitch. I don't know whether you can hear me, guys.
Yes, we hear you.
Okay. Okay. Now, when I come now to my pivot, when you check very well, you'll see there is still circuit which I deleted. The date which I put it is not yet available. What you always have to do is when you come here in the tab for pivot table, there is always refresh. So you can always come here and refresh. So the moment I refresh, these tabs will change. You see circuit has disappeared, now date has appeared. So now the next thing, we want to create a summary by date. How much quantity was being dispatched by every day. So how do you do that? You just drag. Now on the pivot table fields, we always have a section for filters, columns, rows, and values. Now, there is even another way on how you can reformat this by coming here on settings, you put it in this format. But now when you put it in this format, you don't have the fields to pick. So you can come and put it in this format, still you don't have the fields to pick. So you choose for the right way of how you can still go ahead and pick fields. So that's what I'm having. Let me enlarge this. Okay, we shall go with this. Now, what I want to create a summary of a date. So I'll pick date, I drag it, I take it in rows. So the moment I take it in rows, don't worry, this is already a date format. Don't worry the way how it has spread. Then the next thing, I want quantity. I'll pick quantity, take it in values. So the moment I do that, it will automatically sum for you. This is it. So now changing this to another format, it is up to you. You can change this to a format of month, you can change it to a format of year, it is up to you. But at the moment, we have it in form of days. You can even call them days, weeks, and all that bit is all up to you. Yesterday, we looked into many options on how you can convert date, so you can always go there and do it. Also, we have some part here of grouping a field. So grouping a field when you are in a date, you can say, when you click a date like this in one of them, when you always come on pivot table analysis and you say group a field, here they're asking you, you can group by month, you can group by quarter, you can group by year, you can group by days. So let's say by month. When you say by month, it will automatically give you 1 month, which is April. Which means if you had many months, you'd be seeing April, May, June, blah, blah. So you can go ahead and ungroup it. Then you can also test something else. You can say group by days like this. You'll see it is grouping 1st April, 2nd April. That is the format. So you can go with that format, which means here you have the capability of collapsing it and expanding it in case you have many. So you can go with that. Then this is always the total of April because you have grouped by days. You see the total here is the total here. But do we need both? It is up to you. Then another thing, you can go ahead and add many things, but on this, I want to show you something else. In case we never wanted totals, you can go ahead now and go on the design part. But remember, when you click outside the pivot, you don't get the pivot options. The moment you click back in the pivot, whichever you click on it, whether you select it, whether you click in one cell, you'll get these options. So when we go to the design bit, there is this bit of layout which people think like I don't need it always, but we need it always. So I can always go there and say I do not need any subtotals. You see the subtotal has gone, but the total is still there. So you can also, I don't need totals, both on rows and columns, it will go off. So you see now we're remaining with something plain. Because remember, when you're going to do some visualization like graphs, you may not need the totals. And when you leave it there, you'll find that it is peaking at a later stage. So then another person may say, we need to change these wordings. Some of quantity, some of this, you can always customize them to the values you feel like they are best for you. There is a simplest way of customizing this. Going to design, you go to report layout and say, I put it in tabular form. So when you say tabular form, you see now they are putting a month here, they are putting days here, they are putting summary here, because remember we had grouped this by days. But when you collapse this, it collapses everything and doesn't give you any day. So it is up to you. When you have months here, you can go ahead and include days only, alone or independent. Or I can take this back by saying, you take it back to outline. No, not outline. So we take it back. Now, the good thing when you say tabular, you'll see that these namings will change. So when I say tabular like this, they will change and give me the right naming that this is a month, this is a day, and this is a sum. Now, if you feel like you get bored, like to run blank spaces here, not until you find May, you can always go back to the design and say, repeat all items. It means it will not leave their blanks. Because here they were saying that they will put Apple, which is a repetitive. But if you need it, you can always go there and say, repeat all items. It will fill all the blanks, Apple, going downwards. Now, here we have it. You can change this to quantity, just quantity. But remember, you can't change it to exactly this name that is here. You can change it to another spelling by putting maybe quantity in full. When you change it to the exact name, it will tell you that you can't repeat the name that is already existing. Now, someone else would tell me that, what if we need these values in percentage? What should we do? It is very simple. Carry another quantity and put it there. You'll create a second column that is giving another quantity. Here you can come and rename this, that here we are going to put it as a percentage quantity. Someone is asking himself, am I going to now calculate, insert formulas and do what to get the percentage of this? No. You just come and right click here in one of the cell. You come and say, summarize, show value as. Now you have all the choices here. Show values as a percentage of the grand total, percentage of the column total. Now, if you had many months, which means that's where you get to decide. Percentage of the parent row, a lot. There is ranking them, which one was first, which one was second, which one was third. You can rank them. You can also do a running total. I know you have always been asked, what is the total quantity we have done so far on 12, month to 12? And you'll have to select this. Then you look for the total, that it was 19.82K. But no, you can, a pivot table can give you this. When you say summarize value, show value as, then you come here and look for running totals, percentage of running total, or you can say running total as in totals. So what are we doing by date? We are basing on the date because it is the one that is incremental 1 to last. So the moment I do okay, this is it. So here it started this. Then this and this, they added, they go to this. At the end of the day, this would be the total which would have been here. So which means when you're creating your graph, you may need to create a graph of, to look at the trend, which means you need this incremental to see how the increment was from day number 1 to day number last. So
Sabiti, that's you have saved as incremental on the right click.
Yeah, this one I've said show as running total.
Okay.
Here incremental running total, which means they will get this plus this. That is 2908, which is this. When
Just
they
try
add
out
this one,
as a percentage of the totals, and we see if it will sum the totals it automatically because we don't have
now
it.
when you say this, show us a percentage here. When you want percentage of running total, such that you start with 2%, 5, 7, 9 until you reach 100. Here, this one you do like this. You use percentage of running total. So when I say percentage of running total and say I'm using data as my base field, it will start. On the first day, we did 4.2. The next day, we reached 6. The next day, we reached 7. By the last day, that's when we reached 100%. So you can tell where you had a slug. So you can tell that we reached 15th of that day of the month when we had not hit 50%, which means here you can easily tell that the first half of the month, our dispatch was very low than the last half of the month. It is just ideal because you reached 15 when you had not hit 50%. It means that for you to hit 100%, it is the second half of the month that rescued you. Or you can have this into quarters. You can say from 1st to 7th, did I have 20? From 1st to 8th, did I have 25 years? From 8th to 15th, did I have 50? No. From 15th to, which is the other quarter, you know, my math sometimes it skips. From 15th to 22nd, I can go with that. Did we have 75? No. It means that the last part of the month was the hit. That's where we come and ask ourselves, why is it that we have a higher dispatch in the last day of the month? People will give reasons. People are chasing rebates, people are chasing targets, blah, 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 all that. So that is it if you want the running rate. If you want percentage, to show percentage of each day, this time you come and say, show us percentage of the grand total. So percentage of the grand total, which means it will show you here that on Monday you did 4.2. The next day you did 1.7 of the total you did in that month. So you can easily see which day was highest. You can easily tell which day was highest. And if you can't tell by your own eyes, I showed you the other time conditional formatting. I'll just bring in that for the case of now. You just come to your conditional formatting and give it a color grading from green to red. So it means that where you have a high green, you did very well on 50th because it was 4.7. And where is the dark red, which is third of the month. So which means the operation manager will be asked to explain why on third you had 1 point. Actually, you must be having reasons. Now, when you reach this point, you start summarizing your data. It starts giving you insights to explain. Now it's when you'll ask the team, guys, what happened on that? Power was down, maybe one belt was down, maybe there was a strike from transporters, blah, blah, blah. Then someone will ask you, why did we have 4.7? Why did we have a high dispatch? Maybe reasons will come, we had enough clinker stocks by that morning, blah, blah, blah. And you see that it is always a pattern. When you do a green, you start with amber, you reach red. When you do a green, you start with amber, you go to red. When you do a green, you go to amber like that. When you do a green, amber to red. So that is a pattern. Now, when you learn such patterns, you know that today we have done a green, tomorrow we are in amber, the third day we are red. So as logistics, you tell that always on this third day where we're in red, either there were no trucks were on transit or something. That's the story we tell with data after you have done a summary. But before you do a summary like this in this data, you can never tell anything. So that's what we come now and say, we are analyzing data. And it is the same thing here where people will start making decisions. Every time we do green, how can we mitigate to make sure that we don't always fall in these reds? Because you see, every time we do a green, the third day is a red. Every time you do a green, the third or the fourth day is a red. It is just a pattern, you see? It is a pattern on a daily, the whole month, it is a pattern, which means there are reasons that bring up that. Okay, just taking a breathing, and as I'm reading through the charts, as I receive some questions. Okay, Rachel is
Chris,
saying how life is. It is, yeah, life is easy. You don't have to work hard.
Hello,
You
Chris.
just have to work smart.
Thank you. I just wanted to take you a little bit back. Sometimes when you drag the values to, when you drag anything to values, instead of it bringing sum, it brings count. Why does that happen?
Now you know why it brings counts. Because Excel has seen your data is not formatted in numbers, how can it count? How can it sum it? It will instead count it for you. Now, let's go and look in our data, something that is not. The good thing, all our figures that look to be numbers are formatted as numbers. But I wish we had like these values on the left. The moment you want to use those values, they will always give you counts. Now, let's say if I want to count the number of vehicles I use on a daily, how do I do that? This time you're going to drag trucks. Where are trucks? Here. You'll drag trucks and bring them here in values. So the trucks will not sum because they are text, they are alphabet, they are strings. So Excel always automatically knows the data you have put there. So it is upon you, if you don't want the sum, you tell it that, by the way, this one I never wanted the sum, I want it as a count. So if I wanted this as a count, I will come here on value field settings. I don't know whether you've seen how I've got it. So when I click on quantity, I get a pop-up that gives me 5 value field settings. When I click there, there are a lot of calculation types here. So you can go ahead and say, I wanted counts, by the way. So when you say okay, it will automatically give you those quantities as counts, which means on Monday or on first day of April, we did 69 transactions, because even here you see it has counted. But the percentage obviously remains the same. The percentage remains the same. So here I will take this back by clicking there, value field settings, go back to sum. If you want average, you can have it. If you want maximum, that is sum. Yes?
What if you click on the title up there, just double click, then going back to the pivot field?
Here. Thank you, Janice. That one is another option. So I think Janice has shown you that there is another way of killing a rat, not the magic book, but some people like Brian can kill them using a stick. So there is an option of clicking here, value field settings, but that is the basics. Then there is an option of double clicking the header. Don't double click the number, because the moment you double click the number, it is going to get the data for 1st April and put it in its own sheet. In other words, when you want the data for one of the dates in its own sheet, you always double click the number. When you double click the number like this, it brings the data for that day, 1st of April. Those 69 transactions, they are here. It brings them in a different sheet. That's if you have an extended analysis on that, or you want to copy this and share with the team from your summary. I will delete this. So there are 2 options. You can double click on the header, you'll get the options. You can, when you double click the number, it will give you another sheet of all these transactions making up this. Any other question? We have 5 minutes. I know this session should have continued, but
Submitting.
yes.
Just click on the coding, the color coding.
The color coding. So, in other words, if I want to remove this color coding, what I will do, I'll go to conditional formatting. You go on clear rules and you say clear what I've selected. You should always desist from clearing entire sheet. You may have a lot of conditional formatting, you'll have cleared everything. So you just select what you want to clear, you clear formatting. So I've removed it. So I can select it again, Control Shift down arrow, then, and again, another thing, you should desist on selecting the whole column, because if you have totals here, let's get totals and I show you. When you go to design and you say, give us grand totals on rows only, and actually it is on columns. on columns only. So you see it is giving us totals, which means if I selected the whole of this and went to conditional formatting, the color scale, and picked this, you see everything is in amber and green, amber and red. It is only the total that is in blue because we included the total. So if you don't always want to include the total, select exactly what you need. So I will select Control Shift down arrow. The moment it is put in, I will go backwards one step. So we'll come on conditional formatting. Then there are two scenarios. If the higher is your green, you'll go with the first one. If the higher is your red, you may have violations. The higher becomes your red. You'll go with this. So you note it, there are two differences. So we always use this because it has three color scales, green, red, and yellow. But these ones have only two, mostly two, green and red. It is only the transparency that reduces. But it is all up to you. If you want to use green only, maybe you don't want to shame some data that it is in red, you can always go with that. But the best option is always the first one. Then, if you want to put icon sets, you can put the icon sets from here. So you can come on the traffic lights and put traffic lights. You can come on this and put that, such that when someone looks at green, he knows that that was high, it was low. You can come on this. You see, it shows you that the ones that have a green upwards, they were above average. The amber one, the bar was average. Then the downer one was below average. So you have a lot of options here to use. You can go ahead and use them. But the best format always, you can also use data bars. Data bars, they are here. When you come here, you see the data bars that are going in the data. You see that. So you can always have data bars and have the data bars only. But we shall find all that in where we are going. For today, we are going to just look at this. So
Is
that
Rachel
is it.
still on?
Yeah, Rachel should be still on because
Why?
we are still
Why are you
31.
looking for me?
I have to
We
look
are
for
still
my good
31.
neighbor.
It is only one person who has dropped. So, guys, I don't want to eat a lot of your time, besides also my time. But we can extend like for 5 minutes, just receive questions from you. For today, I want you to go and practice just this we have done. I'm going to share this on mail like I did the other one yesterday, such that you can use the same to practice those who don't have the ODM data. Questions?
Yes, Tabiti.
Mm.
What if I want to show that the red was the lowest in green and the highest was, let me say, the green.
Okay, yes, I've got you. The highest, the one with the high value should be in red. The one with the lower value should be in green.
Yes.
Just to do the inverse, you go back to, even if you don't clear this time, when you go back to conditional formatting, you go to color scales, the next option speaks to what you want. You see, the next option speaks to what you want. Even they give you, by the way, they tell you that this one you apply a color gradient. Sorry. This one you apply a color gradient range of cells. The color indicates where each cell value falls within that range. So anyway, so this one will give the red to be high with the high value. Then the ones with the low value, they're in green. In case you are dealing with violations in IVMS, you have to do the inverse. But if you are dealing with dispatch, you have to do the other way. So you have all the options.
Okay.
So yeah, you can use that. Any other person? Don't leave this space when you have your green in everything. At least you can leave the other one for practice, but at least you should understand some of the things you feel like this one I should have asked in the session itself. So you're already 1 minute above. Any other question? We can give it the next 2 minutes. Okay. Silence means that we are all fine. So as always, as we said, we always save our data. You can always pick it that every 5 minutes you save your data. The Excels we are using, sometimes they crash, depending on the networks we are on or the laptops we are using or the antiviruses we have. So it is always healthy to save every after 3 minutes. Even if it is not 3 minutes, so long as you see you have done something huge that you don't want to repeat, please save. It is always a Control S. So otherwise, we shall declare this session adjourned. Apologies to the delay, but at least it was healthy and communicated in time. So to those who were our first joiners today, we always have the session always on Tuesday and Wednesday for 2 hours straight. And we shall be repeating this on Tuesday next week. When is Tuesday next week? Tuesday next week is going to be a 23rd and 24th. That one is very okay. But we shall find ourselves that the other session of 30th and 31st, we shall not do it because it is in end month. So that's how we had planned that always when we have end month, we shall skip those 2 days. In case there is maybe a special meeting or some data looked into, maybe we shall always do it for the specific people. But otherwise, I thank you for attending. Straight 1 hour and 15 minutes, and we do the same the next time. Otherwise, big up. Have a good night. Take care.
Good night,
So,
Chris.
Susan, you have 2 recordings which are pending on your end. We shall share them on the same email trail. I'm going to share the same document on the email we did yesterday.
Sabiti, there is one Musoga called Base. I don't know what you are doing to him with this knowledge of Excel.
What has he done? Has he, is
You
he
are
going,
going,
has he,
you are going to
has
play
he,
Taboko in Musoga.